This video is going to be a brief roundup of the encountering and capturing of every single legendary Pokemon that are in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, with bios explaining the details of the Pokemon, and I hope you guys will really enjoy. We're first going to begin with the Eon legendary Pokemon Latias and Latios. Latios is exclusive to Pokemon Omega Ruby and Latias is exclusive to Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. These Pokemon are given to you on Southern Island after defeating the 5th gym, and they are given automatically to you guys. If you play the story, you will definitely receive these Pokemon. It should be noted, through the use of an event item called the Eon ticket, Latias will be available to you in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Latios will be available to you in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. These are both fantastic Pokemon and they come at level 30. I really recommend you using them. Next up, totally dependent on which version of the games you're playing, you're going to come across Groudon or Kyogre and their primal forms. Groudon is exclusive to Pokemon Omega Ruby and Kyogre is exclusive to Alpha Sapphire, with no chance of encountering or capturing them in the opposite version. You're going to come across these in the main story, and there's absolutely no chance you're going to be able to miss out on actually encountering and capturing these. You're going to be able to encounter them at the Cave of Origin, which is in Sutopolis City, after the events that occur on Route 128. They're both fantastic Pokemon that come with their unique strengths and weaknesses, and have really been improved in these games. The next legendary Pokemon you can encounter while playing through the main story of these games is Rayquaza. Rayquaza is found towards the end of the Delta episode and is required to be captured to encounter the next legendary Pokemon I'm going to discuss. Rayquaza is found at the very peak of Sky Pillar at level 70, and once you are taught its move, Dragon Ascent, you will be able to Mega Evolve it whenever it is sent into battle. Rayquaza is one of the best legendary Pokemon in these games, and I highly recommend that you capture it. Finally, for the legendary Pokemon that are available to be encountered and captured throughout the main story of these games and the actual post-game is Deoxys. Deoxys is a Pokemon that you are guaranteed to encounter if you decide to play through the Delta episode. Deoxys used to be an event legendary Pokemon, however, is the first ever event legendary Pokemon to be available to be captured in the games themselves. Deoxys is encountered at level 80 in space, meaning it's one of the highest level legendary Pokemon in these games. It can be quite tricky to capture, and if you do end up defeating it the first time you battle it, re-defeat the Elite Four and you will be able to encounter it once again at the peak of Sky Pillar. It's a phenomenal Pokemon that comes packed with a whole bunch of forms. Make it a fantastic offensive Pokemon, defensive Pokemon, or a speedy fiend. It's a great Pokemon, and I'm so glad you can capture it in these games. That's it for the Pokemon that you're going to encounter naturally in the main story and the post-game of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but there are countless more legendary Pokemon you can encounter. The first 4 Pokemon I'm going to discuss with you guys is going to be the Legendary Golems, Regirock, Registeel, Regice, and Regigigas. There's going to be a lot of hoops you need to go through to be able to encounter the first 3 of the Legendary Golems. You should be seeing a sped up guide on screen right now, however there's going to be a link in the description and in video right now to where you can see a full walkthrough of actually unlocking and encountering these Pokemon. Regice is specially defensive, Regirock is physically defensive, and Registeel is somewhere between the two. The 4th legendary Pokemon you can encounter after capturing these 3 Pokemon is Regigigas. Once again, there are a lot of hoops you need to go through to be able to encounter this Pokemon, and it's rather difficult to explain. There'll be a link in the description and in video right now to where you can actually see me walking you guys through how to encounter it properly. Regigigas honestly isn't the most fantastic Pokemon in the world, however if you're missing it from your Pokedex, it is available to be captured in these games. The first 3 of these legendary Pokemon are synonymous with the region of Hoenn, and I personally think it's a really good inclusion that Regigigas was in these games too. Now that I've covered the Pokemon that are synonymous with the region of Hoenn, I'll cover the rest of the post-game legendary Pokemon in order of national dex number, or in the order of when you unlock them. The next Pokemon I'll cover are Ho-Oh and Lugia. Ho-Oh is Pokemon Omega Ruby exclusive. Lugia is Pokemon Alpha Sapphire exclusive. Depending on which game you're playing, Ho-Oh or Lugia will be available at Seymourville at level 50. They can be just a little bit tricky to capture, but are well worth the effort, especially since you're going to need them to be able to encounter the next legendary Pokemon. By capturing Ho-Oh or Lugia, depending on which game you're playing, you will then be able to head to the Trackless Forest, which is pretty near to Rustboro City, a mysterious little dark cloud / glimmering object while you're soaring. This will mean you will be able to encounter Entei, Raikou and Suicune in your games. You need to have Ho-Oh and Lugia in your party. I've heard from a lot of comments that you only need one of those Pokemon in your party, but just to be safe, have both of them in your party, and you can encounter Entei, Raikou or Suicune. And while they're not the best Pokemon competitively, I am a huge fan of all things Johto, and I really like these Pokemon. These Pokemon will be available at level 50, and shouldn't be too difficult to capture. Next up, you're going to want to head to the Nameless Cavern, which is pretty near to Sootopolis City while you are soaring. Right here is the location to Uxie, Mesprit and Atsalf, the 3 legendary lake Pokemon from Sinnoh. They'll all be available at level 50. There's nothing too special about them. They're not the greatest Pokemon competitively, but I'm still a fan of them, and they are required to be able to capture the next legendary Pokemon I'm going to cover. Once you have Uxie, Mesprit and Atsalf in your party, soar to Dewford Town, and right above Dewford Town is going to be a huge distorted area in the sky. This area is going to be home to Dialga in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire or Palkia in Pokemon Omega Ruby. They're both at level 50 when you encounter them, and once you do capture the corresponding legendary Pokemon to your version, if you have access to Dialga or Palkia, once again depending on which version you're playing, put that in your party along with the Pokemon you captured, and you will be able to encounter Giratina at the exact same spot. Giratina is once again level 50. I really like these Pokemon, and I strongly recommend that you capture them. Of course, if you're missing them in your Pokedex, that'll come in handy. After taking on and capturing Primal Groudon or Primal Kyogre, you can actually head to the Scorched Slab pretty much immediately, which is just past Fortree City, and encounter Heatran. Heatran is going to come at level 50. I really like Heatran. I covered it properly in my walkthrough. It's got such an amazing offensive typing and some absolutely fantastic moves as well. I really like Heatran. I highly recommend you actually capturing this and giving it a try yourselves. Great Pokemon, really not difficult to capture either. Head to the Scorched Slab, it will be there at level 50 after you take on Primal Groudon or Primal Kyogre. Finally, for the Generation 4 legendary Pokemon, at some point with the method unknown, a small island will be available for you to visit while soaring, which is pretty close to Evergrande City. This location is called Crescent Isle, and on this island, Cresselia will be there. Once again, at level 50, just like the rest of these Pokemon, really not difficult to capture. I really like Cresselia as well. You might see a recurring theme here. I like a lot of these legendary Pokemon. Definitely worth your while, not tough to capture, and is great if you want to complete your national Pokedex. Next up, if you have a Pokemon with max EVs on your team, you can head to the Pathless Plains, an area which is pretty close to Pacific Log Town once you're soaring. The Pathless Plains is going to be home to 3 legendary Pokemon, Virizion, Cobalion and Terrakion. Around every 12 hours or so, the actual time period isn't confirmed right now, you will be able to encounter each one of these legendary Pokemon. Honestly, I think these Pokemon are the toughest to capture out of the bunch. Not in terms of pure capture rate, just in terms of how they're able to set up on you with Swords Dance. They come at level 50, they can be pretty tricky to capture. They're capable of setting up and taking out a bunch of your team members. Just be careful while capturing these. Overall, they're not my favourite legendary Pokemon. Terrakion is a very good competitive Pokemon, they're just great for completing your Pokédex. Next up, head to the Fabled Cave, an area which is pretty near to Slateport City and Moorville City while soaring, just a little island, with a Pokemon that's level 100 in your party, and you'll be able to encounter either Reshiram if you're playing Pokemon Omega Ruby, or Zekrom if you're playing Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Both come at level 50, both can be pretty tricky to capture. I really like these legendary Pokemon. Both have very unique typings, and they're just overall really cool Pokemon to have. The counterparts of both Reshiram and Zekrom, Kyurem, can be found in these games at the Gnarled Cave, which is pretty close to Fall Arbor Town. To actually have this appear while you're soaring, you need to have both Reshiram and Zekrom on your team, and once again it will come packed at level 50. If you use the dowsing machine while in the cave where Kyurem is located on this little, I don't know, mysterious island, I guess, you'll be able to find the DNA splicers, which will allow you to change the form of Kyurem. Dragon Ice type, it's a really unique typing. As it currently is, not exactly the best Pokemon in the world. It is capable of changing forms, as I said, and can really give it newfound potential. The final legendary Pokemon you can encounter in these games, if you have a cast form in your party while soaring above Fortree City, is Tornadus if you're playing Pokemon Omega Ruby, or Thundurus if you're playing Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Both, once again, come at level 50. I've never been too big of a fan of these Pokemon, but it's really cool that they make an appearance and is really useful, as I've said several times in this video, if you want to complete your Pokedex. Now, if you want to obtain Landorus, you need to have both Tornadus and Thundurus on your team and soar to the exact same spot. Once you have both Tornadus and Thundurus in your party, another Thundercloud will appear over Fortree City, and you'll get the option to fly into it, where you can encounter Landorus. All are really unique, interesting Pokemon in their own right. I definitely recommend you capturing these Pokemon. I hope you've enjoyed this little roundup of all the legendary Pokemon in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. If you guys want a more comprehensive guide on how to capture every single one of these legendary Pokemon, there's a walkthrough over on my channel. So if there's any of these you're interested in particular, in finding out just how to encounter them, go look there. A like would be really appreciated on this video. You guys do not understand how much effort I put into this video, and feel free to subscribe so you don't miss any more of my future Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire videos. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.